What up? How about it? Rise up, baby. Excited to be in Atlanta. Excited to stay home in Georgia. Go Dogs, baby.
Falcons fans, you wanted pass rushers. Falcons got pass rushers. The Atlanta Falcons tonight selecting 2 pass rushers in the first round. First, Jalon Walker from the University of Georgia. People have been asking for the Falcons to draft Georgia Bulldogs, and they got one of the best dogs on that defense from the past year in Jalon Walker. And then, you thought they were done for the night. You thought first round the Falcons were going to wait till day 2 and we'll see what happens. Nope. Terry said we're going to make a second pick in the first round, trading back up into the first round to go get Tennessee pass rusher James Pearce Jr., a guy who some people considered one of the best pure pass rushers in this draft. The biggest concern with him was off the field issues, and Terry talked about it after the picks, saying we did our homework. It was a very detailed process, and we really love what he brought to the table. So the Falcons addressing an issue that has plagued this team for years, some will even say decades, and now we have to see if it all pays off. I appreciate you tuning into this Falcons post-draft show that we got going on. Just nothing too long. Just going to get my thoughts on the picks. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on the picks tonight. Mainly from what I've seen across all social media, it seems like a lot of Falcons fans are happy with the pick, especially Jalon Walker. For the most part, I've said I've never seen the Falcons fan base unite over a guy like him. Of course, you're going to have people who don't love him. They think he's too small. They think he's too short. They think he won't succeed at the next level. But at the end of the day, he also is an award winner. He was one of the best defensive linemen in the country. And he is a guy who you can plug all over the defensive line, play him in different positions, off ball, on ball. Guy who I think Jeff, I'll have a great time coaching and using. And then James Pearce, like I said, he was a guy who was considered up there as, like I said, some may even consider him the best pure pass rusher in this draft. And some people were asking after this, this was a very aggressive draft from Terry Fontenot. And listen, when your job is potentially on the line like his is, knowing that one of the major issues that's plagued your team, you got to go out swinging. And he went out swinging. Some people thought maybe giving up a first next year was a little too rich for their liking. And for some people, that may be the case. But at the end of the day, the Falcons also have said this since they got here last year with Raheem Morris. We think we will be a playoff team. So for us, they cannot view a draft pick as this could be top 5 next year, because you're almost succeeding mentally that we're going to be a bad team next year. They are coming into this offseason, attacking this offseason like they expect to be a playoff team. They expect to win games, and they expect to be playing into January and maybe even February for a Super Bowl. That's what the Falcons are expecting, and the moves tonight reflected it, the aggressiveness. And if you think about the pass rush room now with the Atlanta Falcons, you added James Pearce Jr., you added Jalon Walker, you still have Arnold Ebiketie, you have Braylon Trice coming back from injury, you added Leonard Floyd. You have completely changed this pass rush room. And now the pass rush looks much healthier and better than last year's. Now, obviously, the big thing for a lot of the guys, even Rook and Dorless, a lot of these guys are young. Floyd will be tasked with coaching these guys up, helping in development. But the Falcons also believe in their coaching staff. They believe they can coach these guys to their potential, help them develop. Because here's the thing, you're competing, so you need them to develop at a faster rate. And so they're believing in their coaching and development and believing we can get the best and the most out of these guys early. And we're going to need it early. And so the Falcons, like I said, taking the swings they took tonight, showing the aggressiveness, saying that we think we should be a playoff team, and saying, listen, we're willing to lose that first round pick because we really love James Pearce Jr. And remember, this draft was considered probably one of the stronger drafts for pass rush. Some people are talking about you really would trade up in this draft. It depends on what position. Because we always sit here and say a draft's not good. But what if the D-line or the linebackers or the corners are a really deep group? If you're trading up for someone in a deep group, what are we mad about? It's one thing if they trade it for up in a group that's weak. Like, I get it. Trading up for a quarterback in this year's draft, I can see why people will judge that. The quarterback draft is not considered that good this year. The D-line group was considered really good this year. And the Falcons got 2 of them. They double dipped. They took a second pick of the litter, and they got the guys they wanted. I've saw some things that said maybe they were thinking about taking James Pearce at 15, but didn't expect Jalon Walker to fall to 15, and when he did, they had to take him. And so, listen, my initial analysis about the 2 players, let's start with Jalon Walker. Jalon Walker's a guy, obviously people talk about his intangibles, not the biggest guy in the world, but he's explosive. He's explosive, and he can play all over the defensive line. He is a guy who can just, his versatility is what his strength is. And I think with Jeff, he's going to use him all over the defensive line. He won't be lining up at one spot. For one example, I would talk about, if you talk about the 2 defensive linemen who were drafted from Georgia tonight, Mykel Williams, he was more of the anchor of the Bulldogs line. He was an anchor. But Walker was the Swiss Army knife, kind of a little bit how I would say Falcons would like to use Kane Ellis, a guy who's probably better in the pass rush game, but can do some different things off ball. Jalon is not as great in terms of in coverage and away from tacking and being aggressive, but maybe a guy that the Falcons think they could develop into, depending on what they want to do. They may not want him to be that for them, even though he is listed as a linebacker. They may truly view him as a go get it, go after the quarterback kind of guy. And so I'm curious to see how they use him maybe in some double stunts, some double A-gap blitzes with Kane Ellis, and just see how they implement him within this defense. Because he's definitely a guy who I think they're going to try to use in different ways to try to take advantage of his speed. One of the more athletic guys. I believe he ran almost a 4.4, if not a 4.4 in this draft, in the combine, or not the combine, but just during this draft process cycle. And so, guy that I think, like I said, Falcons fans, when we made that selection, a lot of people were happy. A lot of people were happy with the selection because they felt like he was one of the better, just pure defensive linemen in this draft, guy who can get after it, and the Falcons made the pick. A lot of people obviously were talking about Mike Green. Mike Green was not selected tonight, so he seems to be dropping out of the first round. And here's the thing about the draft, people. Here's one thing you got to keep in mind. We hear all these rumors about who's rising, who's falling, who's good, who isn't. We won't truly know until we actually get to draft day, because there's so many smoke screens. There's so many things put out there to make someone think that you're not going in that direction. And you don't know, is this a true rumor? Is this a rumor led me astray? These are the things you have to try to sit through and try to figure out. And that's why, obviously, anybody who has sources that you can trust are really reliable in this situation. But the Falcons right now, I think, they went with Jalon Walker. I think they're very happy about that selection. I think they're expecting him to make instant impact from day one for him. And then obviously James Pearce Jr. Again, biggest thing with him was the off the field is a guy who, listen, people at the beginning of the year considered him maybe up there with Abdul Carter. And he was the 3rd pick in this draft. So people have had him up there with him. And like I said, he'll do some off the field stuff. I think that hurt him. I think out of the 2, Abdul Carter and James Pearce, I think that Abdul Carter is the more complete defensive end. But I think that James Pearce has the chance to be the best pass rushing defensive end in this draft. And I think that just made the Falcons fall in love with him. Big, long guy, super athletic. He ran 4.4. As you can see with both of these guys, super athletic, super fast, super quick. Biggest thing for him is just getting more, just getting stronger, growing a little bit more. He improved in the run game this past year, but still some work to be done there. And again, a guy with a high ceiling. And that's the thing about both Jalon Walker and James Pearce Jr. They both have high ceilings. And again, that is you relying on your coaching, relying on the coaching staff, thinking you can get the most out of those guys in those situations. So the Falcons really came out tonight and said, listen, y'all have complained about this pass rush. We going to take 2 defensive ends. We're going to take 2 good pass rushing defensive ends, and so y'all can stop complaining about it. Like I said, the Falcons have completely changed the pass rush room. They have a lot of young linemen in there that they are relying on to get them through. And so overall, I really think the Falcons right now, I'm happy about the draft. I think a lot of people are happy about it. Like I said, depending on how you feel about the trade, might not sit all the way well for you. It happens. People were asking questions about that tonight, and that's fair. Because obviously if the Falcons end up having a disaster of the season, you don't have a first-round pick next year. So clearly, that's tough. But again, you can't think in terms of what if we don't. Especially if you are a man whose job could be on the line like Terry's was. And he said tonight we're going to be aggressive and we're going to go after the guys we like. We're going to be truly into our evaluations. We're going to be very detailed with our scouting. and figure out what players do we think can impact and help us day one. And I think these are guys that they think can impact them day one, because even like the biggest thing for like young guys like Jalon Walker and James Pearce is that they are not complete players right now, and you could work to get them there. But is there something that they could do now that you think they could step on the field today and help us with? And I think these are two players the Falcons have identified as two players who can do that for them. And so that's why I think they are very happy and excited about getting these two guys. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on these two picks. What do you guys think? Do you hate them? Do you like them? Do you like one? Do you hate the other? What expectations do you have? What do you want to see from them this season? These are all questions that I would love to hear from you guys. And obviously, Falcons only have one pick due to the trade they made with the Rams to trade up to get James Pearce Jr. They have one pick. Technically, before the trade, they only had 2 picks in the first 2 days. Now they have 3 picks in the first 2 days. They will not pick again, though, till the end of the 3rd round. So unless the Falcons make any difference, make a trade, obviously we may hear some Kirk Cousins. Could the Falcons try to get a day 2 pick for him? Maybe a day 3, top of day 3 pick for him during the draft? We'll see. But if not, Falcons will have 1 pick tomorrow, so there will be 1 more player, as far as we know, unless they trade up, added to this roster, or if they trade for a player, of course. So we'll have to see what happens. But hey, I think for the most part, I think morale is pretty good right now in Atlanta with the aggressiveness that they took tonight. So if you enjoyed this episode, definitely subscribe, like the video, leave your comment down below for more Falcons content for show, and follow me on X, Bricey_2K, BRICEY_2K for all my Falcons takes. And listen, we'll have a full draft recap after the draft is over with next week. So this is just the start of it, and we'll keep it going. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in for another episode with Bryce Lewis.